Hello and welcome to this week's sermon. This sermon is for the 30th of March 2025. That's the fourth in Lent, Year C, and I'm using the second set of readings, which are Isaiah chapter 40, verses 27 to chapter 41, verse 13. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 to 18, and John's Gospel chapter 11, verses 17 to 44. Isaiah reassures and comforts those in exile who feel abandoned. They suppose that God has grown weak and weary and just lost all his abilities to come to their aid. Isaiah says, God never grows weary and his strength never fails. His plans may be a mystery to us, but he is always in control. Isaiah counsels those feeling defeated. Those who hope in the Lord shall renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isaiah maps out the entire Christian life in these short phrases. Soar as on the wings of eagles. When we come to faith in our youth, we come with soaring hope, feverish eagerness, and yearning for connection. For in our youth, we are seeking to become an adult and find a purpose in the world, to be someone who does great things in life. Coming to faith in our youth gives us real momentum as we enter the Lord's service, because as young people, we are wanting to throw ourselves into new adventures, new interests, new relationships, and new responsibilities. Out of all our old friends from university days, the vast majority of us, nearly 100% of us in our particular friendship group, have remained in the church. We graduated in the late 70s and early 80s, so we are all now well into our 60s. Our youthful passion catapulted us far into the church, well over the margins where some people are doomed to get caught forever, and into the very heart of the church. Such is the vigour of youthful faith. We will run and not grow weary. Once we get into our stride, we start to eat up the miles and pass the marker posts of adulthood and the marker posts of our faith. The soaring of our youth, often aimless, but with a wonderful sense of liberation as we leave our parental home and start to forge our own way in life, is followed by making choices. At one point, everything seems possible. Any dream seems within our grasp. We can be the one who will cure cancer, build on Mars, become Pope or Prime Minister. But soon, those fantasies drop away as we start to make choices and commitments. Once we make choices, we start to progress in the career we have chosen and soon start climbing the rungs of reward and responsibility. Once we have chosen our partner, we embark upon sharing our goals and trimming our ambitions to fit with family life. In our life of faith too, we take on new responsibilities, as for the first time in life, we learn that we have a duty to help shoulder the load. Church isn't done for us anymore by our parents and grandparents. This is a time for us to get serious in our commitment to Christ as we embrace the adult world of faith. Over time, the running slows and the pace of life slackens. We don't notice it at first, but with maturity, the run becomes a walk. We are stable in life if we have been fortunate. We are stable in our career, with seniority and respect. We have long since forgotten the dreams of being Pope or Prime Minister, but those fantasies have given way to a solid contribution to society. We have played our part, and now we are showing the younger ones how to do it. We have successfully launched the next generation, and now in our mature years, we're just happy to walk with the Lord. If we are fortunate, we are stable in our family relationships, in our place of work, and in our church. We have been through the valley of the shadow of death with our parents, and been beside the still waters of deep, fulfilling love with our partner. If we have been fortunate, life at a walk is a good life, with time to stop and stare. Sometimes we wonder whether we can still soar to new heights and reach out for new adventures. Sometimes in midlife, we put in another spurt of running, just to prove to ourselves that we can still do it. But now we carry a few bruises from life. We've had our share of disappointments and seen our share of troubles. As a result, some people find it hard to keep walking in faith. Life trips them up. Catastrophe slaps them in the face. The zeal of their youth has long gone. Their energy for running has been exhausted. This is the fate that has befallen God's people in Isaiah. Their lives have been shattered by war. Jerusalem lies in ruins far behind them. They languish in captivity in Babylon. Their enthusiasm for God has dissipated. Surely God must himself be worn out, defeated, unable to come to their aid. If he could, he would. He hasn't, so he can't, they reasoned. Isaiah has good news for them. In chapter 41, verse 2, there is mention of someone who has been raised up in the east, someone who has a mighty sword, who subdues kings and sweeps kingdoms before him like dust, and renders people like wind-blown chaff with his mighty bow. This is a reference to Cyrus, the new leader of Persia, who will be the instrument God will use to defeat the Babylonians and send the Jews back home to Jerusalem. The further good news is that this was not a panic measure by God for whom things had gone wrong, but part of those plans of divine providence which are so often beyond human understanding. Even as they hung up their harps by the river of Babylon, unable to sing their praise any longer to their defeated God, God was in fact already preparing the next thing which would result in their return home. In our reading today from 2 Timothy chapter 4, we hear from Paul, who is in a melancholy and reflective mood. He writes as an elder statesman of the church who has walked with the Lord for some time and is now passing on the mantle to the upcoming generation, represented by young Timothy. Paul bears some of the scars that life and faith have dealt him. We know that Paul was frequently attacked, verbally abused, thrown into prison several times, often had little to eat, was frequently exhausted by controversy with those who opposed his work. Paul considers that his days are numbered. The time for my departure is near, he says in verse 6. As he looks back upon his ministry, he can say, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. I hope those words are words all of us will feel we can say as we look back and consider what we have done in this life. With his long perspective that comes through experience, Paul offers his guidance to young Timothy. Paul does not sugarcoat it. He trusts the young man to step up to his new leadership role, and he lays it out before him in plain terms what he will be up against. Correct, rebuke, encourage is the mantra for ministry. I'm not sure that would get me very far in today's society. People don't do deference any longer and would not sit in the pew to be rebuked and corrected. So encouragement is about the only tool left in the box today. But the same threat of ever-changing fads in the church, which change with the seasons, is still there. People wanting to rewrite Christianity to suit their own taste remains a temptation for Protestant churches. People will reject the meat of the gospel for trendy topics that their itching ears wish to hear, but they thereby starve their souls of spiritual nourishment and then wonder why the church grows weak and lethargic. Speaking the truth out of season will be a lonely furrow to plough. And Paul recounts times when he was abandoned by people whom he thought were his supporters. Everyone deserted Paul at one point. He felt alone. Yet he affirmed that even in his darkest hour, Christ stood by him. That is the ultimate message for Timothy. If he is true to the gospel, both in season and out of season, the Lord will never abandon him. The Lord will stand at his side. This message echoes the message of our first passage from Isaiah, that even though they felt God was weak, defeated, and far from them, they should hold on, for God was very much at work, only over the horizon, preparing for Cyrus the Great to serve as an instrument in his hand. So too for Timothy. Even if he feels his ministry is going nowhere and all his support falls away, Jesus will still stand at his side. And that, in the end, is enough. In our third reading today from John chapter 11, we meet someone else who is having a moment of doubt and difficulty. Martha has lost her brother Lazarus, and if only Jesus had been there, things would have been very different. Her words ooze sorrow and reproach. The message is the same for Martha as it was for the forsaken exiles in Babylon and young Timothy facing an uncooperative congregation. Hold on. Hold on. You've not been abandoned. The details that Lazarus has been 4 days in the tomb is intended to demonstrate that Lazarus is well and truly beyond all hope. This was not like raising the widow of Nain's son, who had died within the last few hours and was being carried out to his grave, nor like Jairus' daughter, who had expired mere moments before Jesus got there. Lazarus was 4 days in his tomb. There's a limit to what you can expect even God to be able to do. Jesus shows Martha and Mary they should never write off God. That thought makes my heart sing and dance. And I don't do a lot of dancing nowadays. A new word has cropped up recently in my life, which is slowly growing upon my consciousness. That word is retirement. For all the years of my life so far, that was something that old people did. But now, as I contemplate hanging up my cassock and handing over the leadership of the church to the younger generation, I find that I'm more worried now about the church than I ever have been before. I suppose I have days when I feel rather like those exiles in Babylon. Surely, if God were coming to rescue us, he would have done so by now. I have been fortunate in my ministry in that I have not had the difficult congregations Paul warned young Timothy he would face. But I have been disappointed by the church at the national level to a degree. The British Methodist Church has buried itself in activism as a response to the child abuse scandal, and they have put in place onerous demands of constant supervision and oversight, so that we spend most of our time and energy talking to each other rather than talking to the world. My friends in the Catholic Church seem to have run out of feet to shoot themselves in, such is the reputational damage done by the abuse scandal. The New Zealand Methodist Church seems fixated on cultural identity politics and the climate crisis, because they are easier to talk about today's world than talking about God. But you don't have to be a Methodist to be interested in the Treaty of Waitangi or to care about the environment. There are plenty of political parties and pressure groups you can join to pursue those interests. Whilst both politics and the environment must feature somewhere in the Church's agenda if we are to be relevant to the world, our unique calling at this time is to preserve the language of faith and help the modern world maintain the belief that human life is a conversation with the divine. If we stop talking about God, who will take our place? And what sort of God will inspire them? The good news for me today, and for anyone in any church who ever worries about the future of the church as I do, is the same good news that Isaiah delivered to the exiles in Babylon, and the same good news as Paul used to encourage Timothy. That even when we feel lost, God is at our side. And even when we think everything has gone beyond rescue, Jesus can come along and call us forth from our dark and dreary tomb.